top.
Item number 1, serving halal breakfast and lunch options in Buffalo Public Schools.
Thank you, John. Councilmember Nowakowski and I received this letter from Mr. Rahman from the Muslim. He is from our Buffalo Muslim Community Services location on Broadway. And what Mr. Rahman is asking is that we consider having halal food options in our Buffalo Public School lunches, which Councilmember Nowakowski and I also filed a resolution to get moving. So we're excited about the potential, and the district has been very open to discussion. We met previously and we had meaningful discussion. So at this point, just a little housekeeping. If we could keep our comments to, looks like we have a lot of speakers on the line. So if we could all keep our comments to about 3 minutes, so everyone gets an opportunity to speak. And we also have a couple items after this for business. But I will kick it to Mr. Rahman, who sent us the letter in the first place. If you could unmute yourself, sir.
Okay, good morning, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank everybody, the Board of Education and the distinguished members of the Common Council. And it is our heartfelt thanks for you to give us the opportunity to speak in front of the committee. Okay, so I'm gonna, the other member, my name is Atikur Rahman, and I'm one of the director of the Buffalo Muslim Community Services, and other directors is also present in the meeting. And I'd like to mention that we have 3 also distinguished scholars from our community, and they have in-depth knowledge about this issue. And then I'm going to give you literally a small amount within 3 minutes, the briefing. And then, if you may have any question, is Maulana Asim Ahmed, and it's a Mufti Burhan, and also Dr. Aminul Islam. These are 3 distinguished speakers we have in our presence. So I will request you to give them 3 minutes, and then they will, if you may have any deeper question about this one, they will provide you inshallah accordingly. But I like to introduce my Buffalo Muslim Community Services. We established during the 2018. We are all our volunteers, is a not-for-profit organizations, and we are working for the community for the development, socio-economic development of the community. So we are doing the things we are cleaning the streets, beautifying the area. We are installing the safety and security. We install a lot of cameras with the help of the constituents on this area to minimize the what they call safety and security of the area. And we also spending a lot of time especially in the summertime, to clean all the streets of this area. And also we are doing the patrolling to see, and helping. And during the pandemic time, we are providing foods and helping the elderly and the other members of the family, the community, if they might need any kind of help. So now I'm coming to the point about the halal food. As I mentioned to you that, our scholars will answer all your questions if you have any. And that during, it's a strict dietary guidelines as a Muslim, whatever we consume. So for that reason, a lot of our Muslim students are attending in the Buffalo Public Schools, and out of them, some of them they are not attending with the lunchtime with other students, and not that even getting the foods from the schools. And also some of the students bring their own food from their home, and sometimes if they don't bring anything, they're not eating anything for the all day long. So this is an issue also, and it is also hampering the communication gaps between they cannot get along with the other students during their lunchtime. So I don't like to mention, take that much time, that's it. And I'm requesting you again, if you have any deeper question, we have 3 scholars online right now. You can answer anything. Thank you very much.
Sure. Yep. And if you could just help me out, I don't have a list, but I know you mentioned Asim wanted to speak, so I'll move it to Asim and allow him to have 3 minutes now.
Thank you, sir.
How's everyone doing? I know it says Faisal Ansari, but my name is Asim Ahmed. I'm still learning how to use Zoom. Okay.
Welcome. Asim.
So yes, this is a basic obligation for us. It's one of our basic dietary guidelines that we only eat halal. I have 5 children. Since I'm in an Islamic school, my children are in Islamic school, it's not a very difficult job to make sure that my children eat halal. But for those children who are going to the public school, most of them get left out. So they either, as Atikur Rahman was saying, they either have to bring food from the house or they just don't eat at all. And I think I was born and raised here. I don't think it's very difficult for us to be more inclusive by providing some type of halal program, halal food program for those children who are Muslims. I mean, if you have any questions regarding what are the requirements and all that, we are more than willing to help in providing the vendors or anything else that's required to make it, to simplify the whole process of getting halal food on the tables for the Muslims in the public schools. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if you can just explain, because not everybody understands what halal food is, can you explain what halal food is for the public?
Okay, so halal food specifically refers to meat that is slaughtered in a very specific way. Specific way we mean is that when the animal is slaughtered, it's slaughtered in the name of God, first of all, and that all the blood has been taken out from the body. It's called a consanguinal slaughter, which means that all the blood is dripped out by cutting of the throat. And it's actually the most tastiest of all meat too. But the thing is that if the meat only becomes halal or kosher after it's cut in that way, with the name of Allah being mentioned and with the slaughter, these are the 2 main components of meat being halal. So we have many halal food supplies that are here in the area. Also, halal also includes, by the way, the fact that there's nothing in the food that's derived from any animal that's not cut in the proper way. So like when we go to stores, grocery stores, and we are purchasing our supplies, we have to be very, very careful about, generally speaking, the public doesn't even know about this, but we have to be very careful about what are the things, the main ingredients inside in the different items, if they are derived from haram sources, non-kosher sources. For example, mono and diglycerides. Mono and diglycerides comes from vegetable sources, but it also comes from non-vegetable sources. There's also, for example, glycerin or enzymes of different types. Some of them are vegetable, some of them are non-vegetable, some are synthetic, okay? So we have to be very careful about that as well. So it's not just meat itself, but it's also, for example, a lot of the foods that are provided. I remember when I was going to school, there was ice creams that were not halal because they had mono and diglycerides, or they had lard in them. In those days they have lard. I don't see that anymore now. So that's one thing that's easier for us. So it's not about just providing halal meat, kosher meat. It's also about making sure whatever's on that table for the Muslim child, if there's any processed food like an ice cream or something of that sort, that the ingredients in that are 100% halal.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah,
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Even in this process, it's kind of a learning process, for me as well. And it seems, through the way it's prepared, it ultimately becomes a healthier option.
Absolutely.
If I may ask the next speaker, who's up, if they can unmute themselves and speak.
This is Imam Burhanuddin from Halal Monitoring Services. I'd like to first thank Mr. Chairman and all of his colleagues and all of the members today here who have accommodated us and also are concerned about the needs and demands of their constituency, about the religious issues, the dietary matters related to that, of these kids who are our children, who are growing up in our schools who have a right to have a lunch with their friends and without compromising their religion. That is what it's all about. I also like to thank Sheikh Asim. He gave a very a nice talk about what halal is, explaining what it is. I just like to very briefly tell you who we are as an organization. HMS, Halal Monitoring Organization Services, is a nonprofit organization that is New York State Agriculture and Meats Department approved and USDA approved for for halal monitoring. We pretty much work at the slaughterhouse level all the way down to the stores and the vendors level, where there is no there is compliance with halal at every step of the way. We have monitoring agreements with these businesses, and we have an extensive supply of halal from all over America, excuse me, that's made available to the Muslims, generally easily available to them. So, and we do our work. We are a group of imams, a group of scholars who do our work for a nonprofit basis, and we don't even charge for our monitoring at the retail level. What we do is pretty much we check that the animal is being slaughtered properly, and we check that there's no mixing happening at the distribution level, and there's no mixing happening at the store or, in your case, cafeteria level. So in terms of implementing the halal, there are certain things that do need to be brought up to our attention that maybe it's not exactly the scope of today's discussion, but they should be incorporated in the discussion. Number one, where is the meat going to come from? Like Sheikh Asim said, we can help you with that. We can get the vendors for you. We can make all of that happen easily. We're here for your help in that. Number two, how to ensure that it is halal compliant at your school level. So what we do is when we have here in New York City, we are based out of New York City and Chicago. So in New York City, we have a pilot halal program that started a year and a half ago. And we helped in getting the meat supplied to them. And then we have another organization here that we're working very closely with who's doing the actual monitoring. What we do is when we walk into the school, we set up an audit plan pretty much, identifying the control points, the critical control points of where the mixing could happen, where the religious beliefs could be impeded upon of these children who are our students who are looking for halal, and they are being told, yeah, you're going to get halal here, and this is, they make sure there's no mixing in it. And it's not a very complicated process, but you can identify when you walk in at the delivery point, at the storage point, at the preparation point, at the cooking, etc., etc. So you can imagine that if you were to provide a vegan option for those of your constituents who are concerned about that, you would have to ensure certain things are in place to make sure there's no cross-contamination. So halal has that aspect in it. And one last thing, the meat is the main concern. We want to make that sure, we want to make that clear. The second priority is what Sheikh Asim said is most definitely important for us. The breads and the ice cream, the cheese, the other ingredients that are used in there, those are fairly easy and simple to implement. It's in New York City here. What we did is pretty much we went through all of the different ingredients and products that are used. They gave us a database of it, and we sat and we literally, verified they're either plant source or synthetically produced. And it wasn't a complicated process. There was very little that needed to be changed, because we found that the mainstream companies that are providing to the school districts are providing usually non-animal derivatives because of other concerns that are there. We have different religious groups, we have different ethical groups, we have different ethnic groups who don't want to involve themselves in these meat issues. So that it made our job a lot easier in the bread and in the other matters. So that shouldn't be something that scares us. The meat is the main thing. Having a segregated or a separate menu that will be produced, that will be made for the student without having any contamination, and how we can have that monitoring done. We are here to help, and we are here to provide our services, extend our services, and we hope that you are able to consider this and include this in your plan.
Very much appreciated. Thank you, Imam. And you bring up some very good points, and I think you'll be instrumental. But this was already done in New York City. I believe there's roughly 30 schools that have options in their on their lunch menu right now. And you mentioned vegan options, and Buffalo Public School, I believe, do have some vegan options currently. But it's definitely something to look into. Councilmember White, do you have a question? You're on mute.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Aman, just what the percentage of students are Muslim in New York City, and do we know the percentage of Muslim students in Buffalo?
In New York City, I can tell you New York City, Sheikh Qasim can tell you Buffalo. New York City is a 10% a Muslim population overall. And we found that some schools, based on the areas, based on the districts, some schools have up to 90% Muslim student population.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, thank you. And at this point, we'll go to our next speaker. If you could just unmute yourself. And just remember 3 minutes, please. I see someone has unmuted themselves. El Manar.
Yes, I'm trying to get my video on. Please give me a few seconds.
Sure.
Some reasons. Okay, I got it. Jazakallah khair. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين وأشهد لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. Thanks, Mr. Chairman, for giving me a chance to talk to a beautiful forum. I have seen many leaders from the city of Buffalo. MashaAllah, it is my pleasure to talk in front of you. Many of you I have seen personally when I have an open house when I was opening a school at 29 Claymore Street, the Lovejoy Fillmore School Districts, and the present and the past councilman was visiting at the same time. It was my very pleasure time. So at this time, I like to mention, yes, I know both speakers, they speaks related to the halal food and the definition of halal food and all of these things. I just like to touch one of the area that's so crucial. Alhamdulillah, God gave me a chance to establish 3 schools in the United States. All of them, they're running, and I was a principal among 5 Islamic schools, including big schools to small schools. I was a principal at Al-Rashid Academy in Lackawanna, and now I'm the founder and the principal of Al-Manar Academy in Buffalo, in the process with, still on the process of to have the certified by the state of New York Education Department. So I have seen students on an empty stomach and the full stomach. Okay, many students, when we have seen that empty stomach means no breakfast or no food at home or at a school, the performance in academic sites is way low, way low. Now, if we think of not only the Muslim children, and particularly any students who does not have a food properly, or some reasons the parents did not taking care of it at home, whatever the cause could be, and their performance is going down. So number of populations at this time, I like to mention probably about maybe 5 to 8% Muslim students in Buffalo School District. And the numbers are increasing, by the way. Its numbers are increasing. You have seen a long time ago, a few years ago, in newspapers, saying 1 block at a time. 1 block at a time means taking over by Bangladeshi community. It's happened to be a majority Muslims. But anyway, the students in Buffalo school districts are increasing. Muslim students are increasing. I am sure, the superintendent has better data, maybe. I'm not sure yet. But what I'm saying at this time, so the Muslim students, when they go to the schools, sometimes the parents could not provide the food. Sometimes they rely on, the school district's food. As you know, the school district itself is the poverty level is more than 70%. So as a result, whole school districts is qualified for free lunch and the breakfast programs as well by the federal funded, the programs. So at this time, what I like to mention here, if the Muslim students have opportunity to have a nice breakfast at school and the food, I believe the performance for academic sides will be much better than at present time. So it will bring our school district a good name when they have a good opportunity going to the better university around the nationwide. I would say the nationwide the better university. So the school districts will have the same credit at the same time. So it would be, I would say, it's a win-win situations at this point. So, I would like to urge and request to the school district or the authority to bring the halal food at the Buffalo school districts. That would be a good one, and the good programs, not only for the Muslim kids, it is good for the school district as well. So I would take my microphone off. If you have any concern or questions, I'm here.
Thank you very much for your comments.
Thank you.
Next speaker, please. Possibly could be it. I see MD Kareem is on from Buffalo Bangalore. And so I think that's all, unless anybody else wants to speak at this time. Dr. Caresses, I'll open it up to you to give us some insight. And if you could also speak to some of the vegan options that are already existing as well. Thank you.
Right. So I definitely want to thank and commend all the speakers today. I feel every time I'm engaged in a conversation around this, I'm getting educated. And I'm a little embarrassed about that. I've been an administrator in this district for close to 25 years now, and we have always had children of faith who want to act on their faith and live out their faith, and we need to help figure out a way to support that during the day because it's such a core part of their identity. And so I'm just so appreciative of this conversation. I'm especially appreciative, Councilmember Nowakowski and Councilmember Bowman, for meeting with me a couple months back, for us having this conversation and really attaching a sense of urgency to it. So I have what I think is a very encouraging update for you because we have kind of been busy doing some homework around this issue to find out where is the state of the art. And as the gentleman said earlier, New York is kind of a model for a lot of this. So our food service director was in contact with numerous people, not the least of which was staff from New York on this. We think we have found the halal certified foods that would serve our needs well at a high quality level, and then meet the reality of it has to be in the ballpark of affordability so that we could sustain it over time. We don't want to ever engage in something and then it runs into a budget crisis in a bad year and we have to curtail it or shrink it. If we go forward with this, we want it to go forward as a permanent feature of the district. So we needed to find all of the different leverage points around that. And our food service director, Bridget O'Brien Woods, has reported to me that she's quite confident that we have found the halal certification that has served multiple large districts well, that meets all of the standards that she has to maintain for the reimbursement system that the district is involved in. And what we are now going to be doing is putting a team together, because the approach for us will probably be we're going to do what we always do with any other type of dietary restriction or circumstance. We will survey the parents who would like to have this menu option available to you. We will have that information captured in the roster of every cafeteria that will be participating. And that will be the meal that is offered to that child. or I should say available to that child if that child wants it. And we do that in some other areas, and you mentioned vegan and this and that. So we already have a system in place to address dietary restrictions or commitments. And we would just need to take that to kind of a bigger scale, particularly at some schools. So here's what we envision. We do envision that we will be ready for next September to start at several schools that probably have the highest populations of Muslim children of faith. And we will have in place kind of the same system we would have for any other dietary consideration. And we will be offering a menu. And I like what I heard from the gentleman, and it was about a separate halal menu so that parents know exactly what they're getting every week, and it's a separate and distinct menu that they can be a part of. We think we're going to be in a position to do that. So more to come on that, but we wouldn't even be in the place we're at right now without the advocacy of the distinguished council members. So we really appreciate you kind of steering us in this direction. It's some really good work.
Wow, that's a great to hear. Great news, Dr. Crestes, and I want to thank you for being always very open to this discussion and welcoming it. So I do have a couple more speakers, but I know Councilmember Nowakowski wants to speak, so I'll call on him, and then we'll fit a couple more speakers in and then wrap it. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. When I was speaking to members of my community regarding this weekend, they had asked if I had spoken to the district, and I told them yes. And I told them that when we spoke to Dr. Crestes, he immediately came from a place of, how are we going to do this? There was no question. It was more of an action plan. So I can't thank him enough, and I wanted my my constituents to know that they have an ally on their side in Dr. Crestes and in the superintendent's office. And as you know, we have in our districts, Councilmember Bowman and myself have thriving Muslim communities that are changing our neighborhoods in a very positive way. And lunch really is extremely important to the social well-being of students. It's a way where you build friendships and interrelationships with one another during that time, while also recalibrating for the day. And really, it's a matter of equity and inclusion. And it's very important that as our city grows and becomes more diverse, that our organizations, schools, and other facilities adapt to it. And I just want to thank all the speakers that came today to really support this measure and coalesce around this issue and around Councilmember Bowman and myself. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilmember White, did you have
Yeah, I just wanted to commend the speakers, and Dr. Crestes said it best, sometimes we're embarrassed that we are not as educated as we should be. But I'm really appreciative that the two newest colleagues on the council were very transparent and inclusive to make certain that when we talk about the city of Buffalo, it's an inclusion, not an exclusion. And this is a process, and I think we're going to have a lot of other processes in which we're going to adapt. But it's good news when we have leadership like Dr. Crestes and his superintendent that are open to those opportunities to make certain that we can serve all of our children and all of the families in our community. So this is a very, 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 very encouraging conversation, especially the diversity of where we're hearing the information from. We talk about New York City and already incorporating this. And then the fact that Dr. Crestes says in September, we're going to be actually doing this in several schools is huge. So I thank you. I have a growing Muslim community, as you both know as well, and they have been hugely supportive and impactful and very good citizens. And so we want to make certain that we do all we can to make certain that they're fully involved in our communities and not excluded and appreciated and respected. And we all need to learn more, because the information I got today is really kind of mind blowing, but it's something that as individuals and as of people of faith and different gender, we have to make sure we're open to those things and learning, because we don't know it all, but we shouldn't be afraid to learn. So again, thank you all for your participation, and my colleagues for moving this forward, and the school board and Dr. Crestes for making this happen. Thank you again.
Wonderful. Councilmember Rivera.
Thank you very much. I want to thank Chairman Bowman and Councilmember Nowakowski for bringing this to our attention and to the school district. And I want to thank the school district for starting to take some form of action with regards to halal foods in our school. We all represent a wave of new immigrants and refugees and diverse community and minorities. And I think we all do. There are a number of mosques in my district, on Grant Street and on Connecticut Street. And we all have a growing population within our respective districts. This is being inclusive, and I think this is great. And I think this is one of the things you'll look back as a committee chair and say, hey, you know, we were instrumental in doing this. There's always something you go back to that you say, I had something to do with it to make it more inclusive. And I think this will be one that I look at and I'm thinking right now, I says, wow, this is fantastic. This is something that came out of this committee and from these council members, but it impacts the whole city. So I thank you for that. I thank the school district. Now, the school district, as far as moving forward with this program and us disseminating the information, because you said, you mentioned that come September, this is going to be done in different schools, different parts of the district. Can we get that information, how and when it's going to get done, so we can disseminate that information to members of the Muslim community in our respective districts? Because I want to make sure that they're aware of what's happening here today as well.
Right. So that's a great question. What I'd like to do, with the chairman's permission, is maybe give another update at your March meeting. That'll give us about a month. What that will do is allow our team, the staff here will say, this is how we're going to do the survey work, and this is how we're going to communicate it with food service. So we'll have kind of an action plan that takes what I've said and it gives you more specific detail on who's going to do what and what the timetable will be, and maybe even what the schools will be, so you're aware of that. So we'll have that meeting, and then I'll report back to this committee for the March meeting. I don't want to wait any farther than March, because in April, we're already thinking about June. It's, March is good, because that means we still have a little time and we want to get this buttoned up. I do have a favor to ask, and I'm sorry I don't remember the name of the gentleman who spoke, and he said that his organization provided some support or a resource to Chicago and to New York. Also, he said, because it was the first time I heard it so clearly, about the mixing and how even if you get a prepared set of food, it's also very important about how it's the distribution set up and that's the gentleman. What is your name, sir?
Yes, Imam Burhanuddin. Doctor, thank you. Yes.
Can I need to get your information. So
we'll have our KEPA staff provide that for you, Doctor.
Someone send it to me and to my secretary, the contact information, because I would just like to have a follow-up conversation.
Yes, I was just going to thank you, Doctor, for saying that. I was just requesting from the chairman to just say briefly, just one thing, that whatever steps we're taking now is really investment in this program and investment for our community. So we need to make sure that we take the steps in a correct way so we can have the right product from it, the right results from it. So the technicalities that Doctor was mentioning, I was very interested to find out about, and I was very, very happy to hear that they're thinking about those logistics of how it's going to happen. And I would be very, very happy to offer my services and our organization services, and also the actual certification system of where the meat is going to come from and those kind of things. I think in one word, what I just want to say is the Muslim scholarship, including our organization and Sheikh Asim, who's also on the board right now, our organizations represent the Muslim scholarship of our community, and the scholarship needs to have some kind of consultation role in this matter to make sure that it is happening in the way that our community doesn't go back later and say, oh, well, we wanted it that way. Why didn't you ask us this way? So I think this is important.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll make sure that information is exchanged. I think it's an important communication for both of you. So it's already in the chat, and then we'll make sure Chief of Staff has it for you, Doctor. I do have to wrap this up just because we have another presentation from the DMV, but we are going to, we'll probably receive and file this item, but the following item is our resolution, the Councilmember Nowakowski, and we will leave that one on the table in order for those speakers to come back and in March and speak with us and continue the discussion. This is great news today from Dr. Cressy that we're moving forward in September and that the discussion is commencing with production and some results. So wonderful. Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for your comments. Councilmember Wyatt.
Councilmember Bowman, before we go to, I know that Dr. Christie has already talked, but a resident sent me a text and wanted me to ask about graduation, that they had any input on graduation for Buffalo Public Schools. If he can just speak to that, that's okay.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, nothing yet. If the question is about graduation ceremonies, which I assume is what it is, nothing yet on that. So if it were me, I would assume that it will be similar to what we did last year, which was socially distanced experiences where principals created graduation opportunities in consultation with their parents and stakeholders. Some of them were held on stages outside. Some of them were held in the auditoriums one at a time. I would envision something like that happen. We are quite confident we are not going to be having any mass gatherings of people this school year. But principals will be coming up with plans later in the spring and certainly sharing them with parents. To that point, though, one other thing, the superintendent's clear priority has been made to make sure that seniors stay on track. So to any parents of seniors, it's very important that you seek our help if your child does need assistance staying on track. We really want to make sure that the COVID crisis does not hinder an on-time graduation for any of our seniors.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And at this point, I am going to have a motion to receive and file this item. And
Motion to receive and file.
seconded by Councilmember Nowakowski.
Item number 2, halal lunch options in Buffalo Public Schools.
Item,
And this is the item that we're going to leave on the table. I just saw in the chat, if someone did want to speak, if you could just, Hassan, if you could just speak for less than a minute and we'll keep going.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Bowman. Thank you. You are conducting this meeting, and I would like to thank all of the council members who has given us time to approve this our halal food. This is our religion matter. This is our belief, and really, your efforts. There is no word we can give you thanks, and I am very convinced from council members. So far, I have been hearing that I believe that the halal food is going to be implemented in our public school very soon. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much. And this is the item we'll table.
motion to table.
Seconded by